Hello, and welcome to my Wise and Real audio showcase. Today I'm gonna be talking about Footstep implementation, ambient designs, and a gelling mechanic I've implemented in this test that it's linked to the forest and ambience sounds. I hope you like it. We start at the dirt zone where all the footsteps are dirt footstep sounds, uh, and also we have an armor foley sound that is directly triggered by a animation notify and has a basic pitch variation so the player doesn't get annoyed or finds it like repetitive. The footsteps changes when you change the terrain you are walking on with a ray trace that goes directly below the player. So when you move to the forest, your footsteps will sound like you are on grass and vice versa. Here we have the footstep line tracing system blueprint. We are casting a line trace just below the player. We can also add visibility to our line trace so we know if the line trace is correctly generating below the player. And if the line trace detects a surface type, it will automatically trigger an event that is called Footsteps that I created in Wise. Notice how when we approach the forest area, the sound of birds and different animals will start playing. So when we enter the forest area, the sound of different animals are gonna start playing. This is all generated by a blueprint I have created here in the level blueprint. It's a trigger box, and when the actor begins the overlap, it's gonna be a sequence for entering the forest with two delays for each event. So it's a little more randomized. So when you enter the forest, it's not always the same sounds that are playing at the same time each time. We have the forest post event in Wise that are the birds and the wolves, and we have the frogs post event that are just a loop of frogs. The forest sounds, for example, the wolf is in its respective random container with, for example, the wolf. We have 5 different random places where it will spawn to give variety to the sounds in the back or left and right. The automation gives every instance of the wolf sounds a different place around the player, and it will create a much more realistic ambience for the forest. Here we have 5 different automations, and each one will be randomly selected to play. The main bed loops of the forest are the bird song and the frog loops. This will help fill out the general bed of the forest and keep a constant sound of being alive. So using both techniques of loops and automated single wolf voices, we have a very realistic forest. I've also implemented a yelling mechanic. So when you press the F key, the character will yell a voice line. In consequence, the animals in the forest will get quieter. For example, the birds are gonna get quieter, the frogs are gonna stop making sound, the loop is gonna go down in volume completely, the wolves also are gonna get quieter, and the gel mechanic is gonna trigger some bird screeching or yells that are used to represent the birds getting startled. So let's hear it.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
As you can hear, every time I press the F key, most of the forest sounds are lowered in volume. For example, the frog loop.
Are you ready?
Lowered in volume. The bird loop is just lowered in volume a little, and the wolves also are lowered in volume a little. Also, every time
Are you ready?
there are some bird screeches generated to represent the birds being startled by the voice of the character. And the bird screeches are generated in a random number of times to give it more realism to the forest interaction between the character and the ambience. This feature is tied to a single key press that is connected to a 2-1 node that is gonna trigger our player voice event in Wwise. This event is gonna trigger a lot of different changes in the forest sounds, and after a 3-second delay you're gonna be able to press F again and do the player voice event once more. The player voice event does 3 primary things. The first thing it does is play a single sound that is the voice of the character that says "Are you ready?" Then it's gonna set the state of the forest to alarmed, where the frog's volume is completely down, the bird loop volume is lowered, and the wolf volume also is lowered. And then it's gonna trigger 4 different bird yells that each one has his random container, and also some of the bird yell events have a reduced probability value, so each time you press F is gonna be a different number of bird yells that are gonna be triggered to increase realism and randomization. Each bird yell container, random container, has automation for 3D positioning around the player, so it's a very natural path of the bird yells when they are triggered by the character voice event. As you can see here, I've made a lot of automations, all in different shapes, so it doesn't get repetitive. The forest startled state is gonna lower in volume. For example, here the wolf is lowered -13 in volume, the birds in -22, and the frog loop is gonna be completely quiet when the forest startle state is triggered. As you can see here, we have a forest alarm state and a nothing state. So at the end of the player voice event, the forest state is gonna return to nothing after 4 seconds, where all the original sounds are gonna be playing at full volume again, as if the animals were not longer startled. And so this is it for this project. I hope you enjoyed the different ideas I implemented in this test. if you have any questions or just want to talk about Wwise and Unreal in general, send me a message here in the comments or to my email, whichever you prefer. Okay, so this is all for today. Thank you very much for listening. See you later.